If parties don't agree during mediation, can the mediator suggest solutions or is their role only to facilitate? This is another important question, kind of.
Yes. So primarily the role of the mediator is to facilitate. However, you do have a concept which is called as the mediator's proposal. Sometimes it's known as the silver bullet. Okay, in which there arises a situation where parties are given their numbers, and I'm just giving you an example. It's not always only used for numbers, but you are reaching almost a situation of an impasse. And this is something that I have seen personally in a case that I had mediated. So it was a bank dispute, and there was an amount uh, that the bank suggested as a settlement amount. The party was not willing and they wanted a slightly lower amount. And it went to and fro, to and fro, to and fro, to the extent that eventually they were actually fighting for 5,000 rupees. And the parties were like, bank was like, no, this is our limit. We can't go below this. And they were so close to a settlement because it was a large amount. And then finally, eventually, it was about this tutu meme happening for 5,000 rupees. So at that point of time, in cases of this sort, generally, what mediator produces what they call as a mediator's proposal. Now, this can either be done in a caucus or it can be done in a joint session. Now, that depends on again the nature of the case. So the mediator says, okay, fine, this is my proposal. It's coming as a mediator's proposal. You don't have to accept it. You can accept it only if you want. You give a mid figure or suggest the proposal that you feel is appropriate or can be suggested to the parties. Then the parties consider it. Sometimes time is given in more complicated situations, but in a simple matter, the
How does the mediator remain neutral and what techniques do they use to facilitate communication?
so the very first thing that one needs to understand with the neutrality of the mediator is that there is a difference between the term neutral and impartial. Now, the mediator is expected to be both impartial as well as neutral. For example, uh, we all know that judges are impartial and they are expected to be impartial, but they are not necessarily neutral. Why? Because at the end of the day, they are taking a decision. So they have to analyze whatever is in front of them and come to a conclusion. So if you're completely neutral, you cannot come to a conclusion. A mediator, on the other hand, is not only impartial, you are definitely not favoring sides or taking positions, but you're also neutral, means you are actually not uh,
Suggesting something.
interested in the outcome. The outcome is something that the parties will come to. If the parties are agreeing to something that is something you are not very happy about, it does not matter. So I think that is the first point for the mediator internally to understand. So very important to know that at no point of time you take a decision. You only control the process and therefore your role is basically facilitated. The parties are equipped, are intelligent enough, and are probably the only people who know their own situation the best and therefore can come to the best possible solution. Once this understanding is clear for an individual who is the mediator, it has to also be communicated to the parties in as many words. Now that establishes the ground that this is going to be a level playing platform. It is not only enough to say or make these statements. Throughout the sessions, the mediator must also imbibe these qualities. And it must be something that the parties can actually sense. So we spoke of the caucus sometime back. So if you're going to have a caucus with one party, you will have to also have it with the other party in a way that's a reflection of neutrality. So these are some of the techniques that can be used by an individual to one, have absolute clarity in the mind, to really maintain that mindfulness that at no point of time, because uh, as human beings, you can't say that you're truly ever going to be completely neutral. You have a point of view, and as individuals, we are entitled to our point of view. But that view cannot be influencing another party. I have my own opinions about a certain issue, which is getting discussed. Does not mean I cannot mediate. But when I come to the table, I put my personal opinions away and I then openly listen to the parties, empathetically trying to understand their point of view. And I don't try to push the parties to reach any particular solution because I think it is correct, because it's not about me. The process entirely is not about the mediator or what the mediator thinks is right or wrong. It's entirely about the parties. The moment the mediator comes in with that awareness, it the process actually automatically falls in place. So that's basically the understanding of what neutrality actually is, and of course the mindfulness to be able to practice it at every minute while you're in the mediation, whatever the outcome of the mediation. So even when the mediator makes this mediator's proposal, you're still doing it on a neutral ground. You're not doing it, in favor of one party, and or even remotely trying to show that, making the parties feel that you're favoring one party over the other. So those are some things that one must be very careful about.
Yeah, but ultimately at the end of the day, even mediator is an human being, and sometimes maybe get emotionally carried away. That is very much possible. So even in that condition, he or she needs to control his or her emotion. So in that account, as you said, that the parties are very well equipped or capable to make their decision based on their own interest and compromise based on their own choices. So in that account, does mediator has something like the role if some parties are not capable enough or not equipped enough to understand what is going on and what will be the consequences, so what other parties are demanding and what are their requirements and whatever a lot of things may be there. So in that condition, can mediator just make that party aware about their rights, their choices or their feasibility, what are the things possible for them? So in that condition, will that be something like biasness or what? To awareing that,
All right.
not suggesting, rather awareing.
Okay. So making the party aware of their rights uh, can be done, but not in a way where the mediator informs them of their rights. That's not the role of the mediator. You can ask the parties to, go back and reflect, do their own research, speak to people, and find out what their rights are. As a mediator, you can't be sitting and telling the parties, these are your rights. That is completely not allowed.
Not ethical.
It is not ethical because then you're showing bias to one party and you have lost neutrality completely. However, having said that, if you are finding that there is a party who is completely, getting intimidated or getting overpowered, getting influenced by the other, there is no compatibility in terms of power dynamics in a mediation, that mediation cannot go ahead. If you have one party that is completely weak, who don't know their rights, who don't know how to, ask for what they want and understand their rights, they can't be in mediation. because mediation is for people who are playing at a level field. If there is somebody who's extremely powerful and somebody who's very weak, you can't expect them to negotiate. You can try to a certain extent to give them that power that this is a neutral ground, you can come here. But if they are not in a position to be able to negotiate for themselves, and if they don't have even lawyers or anyone else supporting them to be able to do that, and that's affecting their decision making power, and as a mediator, you're seeing that one party is kind of bulldozing the terms of settlement on the other, it's not a peaceful.
Well,
So
then,
that is something that cannot be allowed. I'll give you an example. So it happens a lot in matrimonial cases, uh, in which you have one party that is very weak, and they are agreeing to everything what the other party is saying because they are not. Now that cannot be allowed. Though the party is agreeing, but you know that they are not agreeing voluntarily. I keep saying the process is voluntary.